I keep restarting this video. There's so much that I want to discuss, and it's just going to make the video really long, maybe a little convoluted, and perhaps there are topics that I can separate out and put into short videos. So maybe I'll just try and continue on where I left off in the last video about Abby and Libby's double homicide and see what happens. You know, what's known as the Delphi murders, they create this obsession and passion in people, not only because two teenage girls were just plucked out of this life, but because of everything that surrounds this case. It's unsolved 5 years later, and there is, you know, POI after POI after POI trundling across our view seemingly every month, right? And lots of rabbit holes for people to go down, and lots of things for people to get really stuck on, lots of things for people to misinterpret or to interpret correctly but not know how to put it all together. How could we possibly know? We can't know everything. And of course, as time goes on, more people are discovering this case, and they go through the usual machinations, the usual suspects, so to speak. So getting interested in different people in the town, different theories. This is all natural, right? And everyone can discuss it how they want. Anyway, I'm making this video because look, not that I need to tell humanimals. Humanimals are exceptionally bright, they're switched on, they tell me a thing or two when I need to be told, and I know your brains aren't soggy for the most part. But there are some people that get caught up in things so easily, and then they become repeaters. And this is a dangerous thing. And yeah, it's just my opinion. And what business is it of mine? Well, I'm making it my business to tell you what I think about it, because it makes me furious. And if I can give food for thought to even one person, to get them processing things in a slightly different way, well, I'm happy with that. Let me just say, Joe, when Tara's ex-husband made that post all those years ago, he did not use the word shack. He did not use the word shack. He uses the word cabin. Now, we can only speculate as to why Tara German's ex-husband, at the time Libby and Abby were found discarded in the woods on Ron Logan's land, we can only speculate as to why he might have reported it as Abby and Libby have been found in a cabin in the woods. Maybe he was told that, maybe he misinterpreted being found in the woods, maybe it does have something sinister behind it. But it suits you to say shack. Now, people are capable of making their own little leap from cabin to shack. You want to say shack because it's more powerful, isn't it? It's more powerful for you to say shack because of all the palaver about the shack to do with this case. Kelsi German mentioning the shack and giggling. Carter talking about the shack or discussing it with Kelsi German. We aren't privy to why. We can only speculate. It could be innocent, it could be meaningful, it could be sinister, we don't know. The point is, if someone said the cabin, and I've seen it, it says cabin. If someone types cabin, don't say shack. Joe of a shattered mirror, you know, he's looking in the mirror. He's shattering it with his magic abilities. This is, you know, he got on to this Delphi murders case a few months ago and started, as a lot of people do, with Ron Logan. I mean, the girls are on Ron Logan's land. It's funny, he's talking about this contact that he's got, Alan, who has contacts in Delphi, but they only ever regurgitate, and sometimes incompletely, quite often incompletely, information already out on the interwebs, in the public arena. So, you know, Joe starts off months ago. He is telling you, and if you can't see it, this evidence that he's laid out in front of you, that Ron Logan is guilty. It's without a shadow of a doubt. You're crazy if you don't see it. It's alarming to him if you don't take his words, understand things as he does, and just go along with him, right? You know, Ron Logan, first it's his voice, it's his gait, and then, because Ron Logan thought, like a lot of people did, that the person was from out of town and had moved on, was long gone, because of that, maybe in an interview that was given to Katie, Miss Fucking Wonderful, and her friend, a fellow creator, they went to Delphi Joe and talked to Ron Logan, and he spoke to them on camera. So I don't know if that's the audio that you're listening to there, where you extrapolate that because of what he says, without question, Ron knows who it was. He either told the girls to put the girls there, or he knows, or he put them there himself. And Joe tells you without a shit, you listen to what I am saying. I have given you this evidence. That is it, right? Because Ron was talking to the girls. They expressed how afraid they were on the bridge and that they had to go back to land after just heading out over the first little part of the bridge. And they also mentioned about the isolated bit of land, you know, and is it easy access? Is it surprising that the girls were left there? And, you know, Ron, in relation to the bridge, at least, he says, look, don't be frightened out there. I mean, look, this isn't going to happen again. This guy is long gone. Now, this is a belief that a lot of people have. And it's not unusual, okay? But to Joe, this meant that Ron, he gets from that Ron Logan is the killer. He's not going to do it again, so don't worry, right? Now, in recent videos, poor Ron Logan, rest his soul, right? So he's mouthed off. He's so sure. He's telling you that you're an idiot. If you don't see what he sees, if you don't take the evidence that he's given you, that he's laid out before you, and then you're a fool. You know, and all his sermonizing and all his self-aggrandizing, right? You're a fool if you don't believe him. And now, you know, Ron Logan, rest his soul, it's all about the land grab. You know, this is where he's up to now. And he's talking about that he's getting this information from Alan's contacts, you know. Look, pretty soon he'll find the video that discusses that Ron Logan had negatively geared mortgage and needed to be living on the land. And if the McCain sandwich were wanting to get Ron's land in that way, you know, put him in prison. This was the theory, right? Put him in prison so that he's then not living on the land. So then he's in breach of the terms of his mortgage on his land. He could then the land can be sold out from under him. This didn't happen. And Ron Logan in his 70s was put, earlier on too, Joe's also saying, law enforcement, tell me where he was. Did you even find out where he was at the time of the murders? Joe, this was why he was in prison, because of where he was during the time of the murders and what he was doing. Okay? And this is why he's put in prison. Now there is speculation, and it would have to be someone obviously that knows Ron Logan to be able to get him off his land. There's speculation by some that Ron was lured away so that, he wasn't on the land, so that they wouldn't be discovered placing the girls or, murdering the girls there. But, he's so sure, right? He's so sure. And he tells you you're an idiot. So who's the idiot? Okay, and then it moved on, then Shane Evans, and he wants to know about his limp, and he's absolutely sure about Shane Evans. And anyway, let's move forward, because 11 minutes and I haven't really got into how I was going to talk. So, because I did want to talk about his bias, right? Because what you must do, right, and this is what we do on the Humanimal channel, right, and a lot of people don't like you to do it. They don't understand why you do it. Another term for what I'm going to talk about is devil's advocate. But what it is, it's called falsification bias. And what I think anyone must do when you're assessing information and trying to work out how you feel about a case or any situation in life is you've got to check your own confirmation bias. This is the only reasonable thing to do. You check your confirmation bias by running it through a falsification bias filter, just so that you can be sure about the things you're going to settle on. Joe doesn't do this. And, we all cycle through. Look, here on the Humanimal channel, as things catch my interest, I'll come on and I'll talk about it. And it's always in a speculative way, just to have a look at something. So Freemasonry and Satanism and different POIs and things like that, right? I have talked about it here. I'm not telling you, if you're an idiot, you don't trust me. If you don't listen to me, understand me, believe me, and come on this little wagon with me, you're full. I'm appalled. I'm alarmed, right? So, beliefs and prejudices can take the place of equipment and programs, right? So if you're thinking about filters, if you think about what is a filter, you've got HEPA filters. You can take particles out of gas. You can take solids out of liquid. You can filter color and light through a lens. Light filters through tree branches. Funds trickle down. Information filters down, right? Here in Brisbane, we call the Gold Coast the Sieve. You've got, the eastern seaboard of Australia. You've got Brisbane halfway up. Slightly below, we have the Gold Coast, Surfers Paradise, etc. And then down in New South Wales, and then there's Sydney. And people in Brisbane call the Gold Coast the Sieve, because it just stops the riffraff at the Gold Coast. So programs can filter out data. For example, you can capture data, you can block data, right? Imagine if your brain is a computer program, running a computer program. What if you've got it set only to block data? What if you're not looking at everything first? You've got something blocked. It's going into spam. you don't even know if it's relevant or not, right? Because you've set the filter so that you don't even see it. You don't even want to look. And it's the same with the data you capture. You take on board things that confirm your bias or your belief, right? So I put some notes here because let's just try and keep on track now. I have tried to start this so many times. I don't want to be misconstrued. I've talked about the town of Delphi, but I've made a lot of Delphi videos. We've talked about this little town. We know that its main industry at the moment is Indiana packers. Delphi is a small town that hasn't grown in population, and it's got a snowbird population as well. This upsets locals because people are taking their money away for part of the year. They're not supporting local businesses, yet they've got property and wealth maybe invested in the town, and then they take it somewhere else for 6 months of the year. But it's a great little town in the sense that it doesn't make the mistakes that a lot of small towns do, where there's nothing for the youth. There are sports teams, there's lots of opportunity, there's community activity, and there's the opportunity for youth to see that there's a bigger world out there. There's programs where high school students, and Libby was one of these persons, high school students can go to Purdue University to take classes, to expand the opportunities for various vocations in life and see possibilities. So there's that positive side. But there's the crystal meth aspect as well, for example. And unfortunately, when people work in an abattoir, particularly when they're on the killing floor, spiritually, emotionally, physically, it's difficult to cope, and some will turn to drugs, and crystal meth is a common one. And there's that problem in Delphi. You've also got all the trucks coming and going. There's millions of tons of meat produced from these slaughtered animals every week. And of course, people that aren't able to be employed elsewhere, for example, are employed at packers, people with criminal records, people who may not even be legal, are hired because not everyone is going to be able to do this work. So that's Delphi. But anywho, so you've got bias, right? So it's the inclination or the prejudice for or against one person or group, and it's considered to be unfair, okay? And there's different types of bias. There's information bias, there's selection bias, there's confounding bias. Confounding bias is a really interesting one when it comes to how people understand or view cases such as the Delphi murders. I was going to talk a little bit more on those things and the spectre of association and distortion, and how bias can mask true association. There can be associations. This is a confusing thing, the confounding thing. But this is already 18 minutes long, and I'm moving on. So what, evidence. Evidence is the available facts or information indicating whether a belief or proposition is true or valid. If you think of court scenarios, so real evidence includes physical evidence. This is things like blood, fingerprints, DNA, a hammer, a gun, a knife, a bow and arrow, a garrote. And real evidence has to be authentic, and it has to be relevant. And what real evidence has to be is probative. So when we talk about probative evidence, this is something that can prove or disprove, and probative value can't outweigh, should not be outweighed by shock value. And a lot of commenters, even creators, they just waive knowledge of this because it's more exciting, or it serves their confirmation bias to ignore probative value in favor of shock value or prejudicial value. And yeah, it's very frustrating. Again, remember falsification bias, run it through, see where you're at. I mean, in the Morphew case, for example, this is a shitstorm as well, right? Depending on whether Judge Lama, depending on whether Judge Lama is doing what they want or sees just or not, whether they know the law or not, whether they understand the impact of things that happen in cases, whether they give a shit, Judge Lama might be good or bad, depending on how he is seen to be serving their beliefs. So you've also got demonstrative value, right? So demonstrative evidence, these are charts, this is crime scenes, this is maps, it's graphs, it's anything that illustrates something for either side of counsel, okay? So this is a tool that can be introduced, and again, if it's authentic, if it's relevant, if it has probative value, then it can be allowed in court. You've got documentary evidence. This is an interesting one for Delphi, isn't it? Particularly with what I'm talking about now. If you don't know, I'm talking about Joe of a Shattered Mirror, okay? So documentary evidence. Is this video? Is this letters? Is this diaries? Is it contracts? Again, these have restrictions and qualifications for submission by counsel on either side. Has to be authentic, has to be relevant, and has to establish fact, has to be able to prove or disprove something. Otherwise, is it authentic evidence? No. So prejudicial evidence will unduly influence, okay? So a matter will then be decided on an improper basis. These types of evidence do not all carry the same weight. So those types of evidence, real evidence, demonstrative evidence, documentation, they don't carry the same weight at trial. We also know that forensic evidence, was it true crime design? No. James, who's your cold cases? HCC, who's your, I always want to say who's your, Hoosier, cold cases, but I know it's pronounced Hoosier, I think. And check him out because he shows you how serial killers were caught. It's not all on forensic evidence. So, yes. So, all of this evidence comes to explain or create fact, okay? And a fact is a known thing. It's a provable thing. It's something proven to be true. It's not just something you believe. So let's talk about confirmation bias. So confirmation bias, it's been around for 60 years. It was coined by Peter Watson, and it connotes the seeking or interpreting of evidence in ways that are partial to existing beliefs, expectations, or a hypothesis at hand. And you can have biased memory as well. But that's important. Confirmation bias is something that connotes the seeking of fact that fits your belief system, or it's the way you interpret, so the way you process evidence. It's not being objective with evidence and ensuring to connect all your dots. It's accepting what suits you and discarding other things. And look, you might still, after running things through your falsification bias, you still might come out at the end on the path you were on before. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, the cure for confirmation bias is falsification bias. So this is where you actively seek to disprove your own point of view. So I like to think of this as, you can be running a defrag program, right? So, get rid of your operator error, or the common error, of your brain. Because what happens with confirmation bias is, this is what human beings do, is we hold on to it. We double down. We hold on to it without that thoughtful effort to let go. So if you're going to selectively seek, recall, weigh, interpret information only in a way which supports your existing belief, expectation, or hypothesis, you can be very disinclined to change. And this has been studied and proven. So I feel it's more clever to be open, to be looking at a myriad of explanations. So again, it's kind of why, I don't always enjoy being a devil's advocate, but I'm trying to just work through a process in my mind so that when I get to a conclusion, I can be much more comfortable with it and I can be much more sure. That I've reached something that I might be able to understand as an established fact. But again, this is very hard to do from a distance from anything in life, because you don't often have all the information. You just, it might be a filter that just exists simply out of circumstance, okay? Criminal evidence is subject to the filter of bias in the way it is collected and evaluated. And this is something that pains people a lot, doesn't it? Me, you, so many millions of people that follow true crime are so infuriated, flabbergasted, and frustrated because criminal evidence is subject to the filter of bias. We've got this over and over again. And, this is because we're all human. You can't jump to the conclusion that it's because of corruption. Sometimes it's just incompetence. Sometimes it's lack of experience. Okay? There are so many reasons why criminal evidence is subject to the filter of bias, and this is relating to how it's collected and how it's evaluated, right? So again, in Suzanne Morphew's missing person case, which is now a murder trial of her husband, Barry Morphew, we know that evidence wasn't followed up. So that's going through the filter of bias. Was this laziness, stupidity? Was this purposeful for a reason we don't understand? Was it inexperience, just an oversight? We had the CBI on board and the FBI. And the CBI, we all know that wow, they've got experience in Colorado of some extremely, one of the most, probably the most mysterious, and maybe beyond difficult, maybe impossible persons, murderer to understand. We've got Christopher Watts in Colorado, and we've got Kevin Kobach involved from the CBI in the Watts case and in Suzanne Morphew's case. You know, it's not like there is a plethora of inexperience, okay? But we've got evidence being evaluated in particular ways. I mean, look at how some evidence was evaluated just in this instance. You've got Barry Morphew running around the house, running through walls at 100 miles an hour, chasing Suzanne, because his phone's doing what phones do in mountains and pinging all over the shop. Okay, so, and we have this problem in Delphi as well. You know, there hasn't been a double murder in Delphi since a double murder on Becky Patty's side of the family decades ago. So let's get down to a few brass tacks about Joe of a shattered mirror, okay? So Joe, like a lot of people's, you know, and as more people are going to do, has discovered this case. He was first looking at the Zodiac murders, the Zodiac killer, and 5 months or so ago, from what I can extrapolate, he has found the Delphi murders, and he's become, as a lot of people do, he's become obsessed. He started off how a lot of people did, right? Looking at Mr. Logan, Ron Logan, who died recently. And Joe's style is to tell you that if you don't see the facts as laid before him, trust his evidence, his brain, his way of understanding, then he is alarmed. You are stupid, you are rotten, you are useless, right? In all his sermonizing and self-aggrandizing, this is what he is telling you about anything that he brings to you. It is evidence. He understands it. And if you don't, it's alarming, it's anomalous, it should not be taking place that you don't understand it. And what he does is, okay, he talks about Becky Patty. So this is following on from what first prompted me to speak up about this guy, right? Look, it's anyone's business what they do on YouTube, how they talk about cases, etc., etc., etc. Heaven only knows I go to various places here, don't I? But what he does is wanks on for half an hour, telling you, tells you a tiny little thing. It's something that it's just got lodged in here, right? And he gets fascinated with it, excited by it. And then he tells you for half an hour or so in his orations that if you don't see it, you're an idiot. So Becky Patty, using a bag to hide her hand, push a book off the bed, a book, Promise Not to Tell. What does he say about this? That Becky Patty, only Becky Patty can tell you her dirty, stinking, rotten game. Joe is incapable of thinking through all the reasons why Becky Patty might be doing this. First he started off, see, this is going to be long. Let's just finish with Becky Patty first and see if we can get to what he did about Ron Logan. okay, this guy's a lunatic. He's soft in the head. Maybe he's got some PTSD, and I sympathise with that. But he's not anchored. So only Becky Patty knows. Only Becky Patty can answer for her actions. She is playing out this evidence. This is Jo speaking here. She is playing out this